Hi everyone. Well, we're ready to go ahead and begin the animating of the sack and get that rotation happening. So first thing we need to do is to go ahead and open up the ruler tool. And the ruler tool can be found on the top of the screen. So if we go to View and Rulers, okay, View and Rulers, then I open up basically a horizontal line that runs parallel to the top of the stage and a vertical line on the left here that runs on the left-hand side of the stage. To bring the rulers down onto the art board, you simply take your cursor and move it up onto the ruler, left click, and then drag down as you hold the left click and pull down onto the art board. Once you get it where you like it, in this case I'm going to go ahead and have the bottom of the sack at about a third of the way up from the bottom. And then I'm going to go to the left hand side and using the vertical ruler, I'm going to left click on it and left click and drag a line to the center of the stage, as close as possible to that center. And there we are in the center. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and slowly bring my sack images onto the stage and lining them up in the center part. Now, one of the things that's nice to know is that because I drew all of my sack images at the same height using the same guidelines when I designed them, I do not need to worry about resizing them now that I bring them into Adobe Animate. So I can just left click and drag and place it right onto the artboard. Now to fine tune any movements, I'll use the I'll use the arrow keys on the keyboard to adjust the character and get him positioned with his baseline on the bottom and the center point of the sack itself lined up with the center of the sack. Now with the image itself, the ruler lines, we do not change those anymore. Those ruler lines stay in the exact same spot. What we do move is we move the character around to get it to fit within that space. So right here, as you can see, I've got it set up so that the base of the character is on the line and the center is lined up here with the center of the sack. Now, the center of the sack might not necessarily be this little crosshair. It might actually be a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right of that. And what I'm doing here is I am just averaging out, looking at the overall distance from the extreme left to the center and the extreme right to the center to make sure this space and this space look like they are centrally placed. Now, I'm going to go ahead now and we're going to go through a series of copying and pasting and inserting a blank keyframe, copying the image, and then pasting the image, not the frame, onto the timeline. So let's begin. So I'll go to the next blank notch in the timeline. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say insert blank keyframe. I'll put a blank sheet of paper down. Go back to frame 1, click off to the side, and then I'm going to go ahead and select my second image, which is the one where I am at a 3/4 angle, and I'm going to go ahead and right click on it and copy it. Just copy it. Then I go to the blank piece of paper or blank notch in the timeline that I just put down, and I right click on the stage and say paste in center. That puts it really close to where I need it. Then I can drag it and then do a fine-tune adjustment right there in the center of the page. It all looks really good right there. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go to the right here, right-click and insert a blank keyframe. Then I go back to frame number 1, click off to the side, and select my profile frame. That's my third one. Right-click on it, and I copy it. So I'm just copying the image, not the frame, just the image. And I go to the blank paste. Then I go ahead and say place in center, paste in center. There it is again. So now I go ahead and drop it down and I adjust it a little bit left and right. And it looks pretty good there in terms of the overall farthest point left and furthest point right. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert another blank keyframe. Right click and insert blank keyframe. Now I go back to the first one, click off to the side, and I grab my 3/4 back. So I click it once to activate it, right click, and then say copy. Go to the blank keyframe, right click and paste in center. And then we'll move that down and I'll fine tune it with my arrows on my keyboard. And again, I'm looking for that distance between the farthest point, the furthest tip to the center, furthest point out. I want to just average that out a little bit. It looks like that's about right there. Okay, now let's go ahead and I'm going to insert a blank keyframe again. Then I go back to frame 1 and I click off to the side and I grab my last frame. So I click it once, then I right click and I say copy, and I go to the last frame in the timeline, right click and I say paste in center. And there it is. I'm going to move him right up, put him right in that spot. There we go. So I've got him in there, and I'm going to fine tune it. Make sure I got him just where I want him. Looks pretty good. Now I can test this by clicking on the blue scrub bar here and just dragging him back and forth. Look at that. He's doing a half turn. He's front, and then we get him going back. Right? Look at that. Looking pretty darn good here. Pretty darn snazzy on our guy here. Okay. Now, so what I need to do now is now I need to get him to finish the turn. So we've got him on a front, and we've got him on a 3/4 front, profile, 3/4 back, and back. But now we need to copy and paste it so the images so that he continues his rotation in that and flips around to the other side. Okay. To do that, we'll basically figure right now if we were to rotate this, is that if this was to rotate, this right here, which is the back frame, would immediately come right back to the beginning frame, which we don't want. We want it basically to go backwards, to go back to a 3/4 profile and 3/4 front in reverse. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to take frames 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to copy those and paste them right after. Take a look. We'll go ahead and select the first frame, hold the Shift key, then select frame number 3, or excuse me, number 4. So I've got frames 2, 3, and 4 selected. Now, keeping the cursor in the blue area here, I'm going to right-click on it and say Copy Frames. Okay, that copied the whole group. Now I'm going to go ahead and select that next blank notch in the timeline right here at the end, and I'm going to right-click on that and say Paste Frames. And that pasted 2, 3, and 4 in there. But what I need to do is I need to reverse the order of them. So once again, that first one in that I just pasted is selected. Then the last one with the Shift key held. And then I'm going to go ahead and right-click. And at the very bottom, this becomes available. Right there, this only becomes available, this where it says reverse frames. This only becomes available when you have a selection of frames or a group of frames selected. And it's asking, hey, it's making as an option, do you want to reverse them? Yes, so 1, 2, 3. There you go, I just reversed the order. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to do one more thing to these 3 frames. I need to flip them horizontally. To do that, you can't do them all at the same time. You have to do them one at a time. But here's how we do it. So I click on the first one, and I go to Modify, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Again, I click on the frame I want to flip, and then I go to Modify, Transform, Flip Horizontal. There it is. I just flipped that one. Now I go to the next one, Modify, Transform, Flip Horizontal. And the last one, Modify, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Now I've got all of them there. So now if I grab my scrub bar here and grab through it, we can see that character looks like it's going through almost a full turn there. See? So front, 3/4, profile, 3/4 back, back, and then we have 3/4 opposite direction, profile opposite direction, and 3/4 front opposite direction. Now, if I was to go and test this by going to Control and Test Scene, there's my sack. He's spinning away, and he looks great. Of course, he's going a little fast, but we can go ahead and slow him down. I can slow him down, and those of you probably have guessed this now by now, at least you should. You should know that to slow him down, we need to animate on 2s and not on 1s. Right now, we're animating with each frame going 1 notch at a time. To animate on 2s, we extend the frame out for 1 extra notch. So we click on the keyframe, and then we hit the F5, that's Fox 5, top of the keyframe, top of the keyboard, and it extends it out. So F5, 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 etc. So I do that to each one of the frames. Now, if I do a Control and Test Scene, there we go. Speed now is good. It's anchored at the base. It's rotating back and forth nicely around its central axis. The bottom is not moving up and down. It has a good solid base, and it's believable as a 3-dimensional object. Okay, now we need to add one more thing to this, in the fact that we need to go and we need to lock this layer, and we need to add one more layer to this. And the one more layer is the background that we need to add. So I'm going to click on the new layer and drag new layer and put it right below there. And I'm going to label that background. I'll go ahead and abbreviate that, background. And I know, yes, go ahead, we're going to anchor it. And now with this space back here, I'm going to go ahead and there's nothing on it, but I'm going to go ahead and put something on it. I'm going to put a white background. So I'm going to go ahead and select my palette here, and I'll put myself a nice white background. If you want to have a color, you're welcome to. Then I'm going to select my rectangle and left click and drag a box that fits just around the outside of the stage. Okay, so notice that this is filled in now, and I lock that layer. So now I've got my sack. It's all fully set for its rotation, and I've got my background there all set. So to do this now, I'm going to go ahead and export this the final time. To export, go to File, Export, Export Video Media. Okay, again, File, Export, Export Video Media. When it pops up, your settings should be in movie, should be entire movie, which is all set. And in terms of the format and preset, that should be similar to what you had the last time you used it, which was the H264 for the export, and which will give you the MP4, and the preset, which is a good quality for the YouTube 1080p full. Now, in terms of the output, I have to change where I want this to go. And right now I've got it set to go into my SAC folder, untitled, on the desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and rename that here, and I'm going to call him Green SAC. And I'm going to go ahead and at the very bottom here it says Start Media Encoder Render to Queue Immediately. That's a little checkbox to make sure that is checked, because we want it to render it into an MP4. So I'll go ahead and click Export. Give it a moment. Now the media encoder box may open. Sometimes for a shorter movie it doesn't open. It'll just go ahead and export your file right to the final piece. If it does open, you'll see in the right hand side, lower right hand side, you'll see the window of the movie playing through very quickly. When it's done, just minimize that window and then go ahead and go to the location where you chose to have the final movie exported to. So I'm going to move this over, and there is my folder. It says SAC. Double click on it, and there's my SAC folder. Open it up, and there it is, just the one little file there. So I'm going to go ahead and let me go ahead and play this. This one I don't need, actually. Let me delete this guy. This is the one I actually want. And so there's my SAC. Got the one little spin, but I'm going to go up here to the right, and I'm going to set it for repeat, and then hit play. Beautiful. It's rotating exactly as we want, and it looks good. It's anchored. It's three-dimensional. Perfect piece. So that's exactly what you're looking to do. That's exactly what you're looking to do for yours. Okay? All right there, folks. So I'll let you guys go ahead and go at it. Go ahead and line up your SAC on the artboard. Go ahead and use all the tools as shown. And then once you have your final exported SAC rotation, you're going to go ahead and upload that to the SAC rotation discussion board. Okay? Good luck. Have fun. Bye now.